Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of the Team Daddy Weekly Recap. I am your host, Shapiro the Hero, aka Daddy Dreidels. Week 3 is in the books and we've had our first game decided by a captain's choice as well as another captain winning money for their team. As always, we'll go around the league looking at scores and standings, but first, before our weekly sponsor, I do have to correct an error of omission. As we all know, our Team Daddy League has gotten even daddier as Zach became a father before the season began. Zach, I'm sorry it took me 3 weeks to officially recognize you, so here it is. A big congratulations goes out to Zach and Katie as they welcomed little Natalie into the world before the season began. Zach, officially welcome to Team Daddy. And now, a word from our sponsor. This week's sponsor is Taylor Brand Pork Roll. Though the debate has raged throughout New Jersey for centuries and even torn families apart, Taylor Brand Pork Roll is the signature choice when deciding what to call this delicious New Jersey staple. Taylor Brand Pork Roll. You can call it what you want. I call it delicious. We'll start this recap off with the reason for this week's sponsor, my matchup with George. George and I had a bet that if I lost, I would have to find a non-kosher sponsor. And such was the case, as George got a well-deserved win, 190.8 to 119.45. George not only had the highest scoring team of the week, but also the highest scoring player, as Captain Jamar Chase led all players in Week 3 with 58.2 points. George also got 31.5 points from Jonathan Taylor and 20.7 from Zach Moss on Monday night to seal the win. My team was led by Dallas Goddard with 32 points, but that was about it for my scoring. I dropped to 1-2 with this loss and will try to get back on track next week against Jed. Meanwhile, George is now 2-1 and looking like he may have actually figured out how this whole fantasy football thing works. George will try for his third win in a row next week when he takes on Big John. Speaking of Big John, he won his second game in a row this week, beating Josh 123.2 to 119.35. Big John was led by Joe Burrow with 41.6 points, and he also got 14.7 points from Captain Brandon Ayuk. On the other sideline, Josh was led by Justin Jefferson with 20.1 points, but ultimately dropped his first game of the season. At 2-1, Josh will try to get back to his winning ways next week when he plays PJ, while 2-1 Big John will go for his third win in a row against George. Looking at the commish now, PJ had a tough go of it in Week 3 as he falls to Jed 107.15 to 105.7. Jed was led by Rashee Rice with 34.1 points, but it was Captain Younghoe Koo that stole Jed the victory. On the other sideline, PJ was led by Brock Purdy with 33.7 points, but missed out on the win and $10 by leaving Jawan Jennings and his 51.5 points on the bench. Now at 2-1, PJ will try to get back in the win column next week when he takes on Josh. Meanwhile, Jed is now 2-1 despite being outscored by 10 other teams this week. He will try to actually own his own win next week when he faces off against me. Turning now to the newest daddy in the league, Zach got back in the win column this week after defeating Brett 147.75 to 120.85. Zach was led by Deontay Johnson with 31.2 points, and Zach also got big games from Lamar Jackson and DK Metcalf. Brett was led by Kieran Williams with 31.6 points, which ultimately accounted for about 25% of Brett's total score. After winning Week 1, the self-proclaimed king has now lost back-to-back weeks. Brett will try to remember how to win next week when he faces Kyle, while Zach will look to make it back-to-back weeks in Week 4 when he takes on Cheese. Speaking of Cheese, it is officially silly season for the trading market, as Cheese falls to 0-3 after losing to our mentee 127.8 to 115.43. Our mentee was led by Dak Prescott with 39.65 points, and our mentee also got 30.5 points from Captain Amon-Ra St. Brown. On the other sideline, Cheese was led by Captain Patrick Mahomes with 33.83 points, but was unable to come away with a victory. And without his running back tandem of Christian McCaffrey and Isaiah Pacheco, Cheese may have trouble finding a win this season until they return. Cheese will try once again for his first win of the season next week against Zach in another Battle of the Blue. Meanwhile, our mentee improves to 2-1 on the season and will try to make it back-to-back wins when he takes on Swans in Week 4. Speaking of Swans, our final matchup of the week featured our first Swansboro Bowl of the season, with Danny taking on Kyle. And when the clock showed zeros, it was the Elder Swans getting the dub, 172.6 to 167.95 over Kyle. Saquon Barkley led the way for Swans with 42.6 points, and Swans also got 41.55 points from Josh Allen on Monday night. On the other bench, Kyle was led by Derrick Henry with 35.4 points, but could not beat his older brother despite 4 other players on his team scoring over 20 points. Kyle is now 0-3 and in a tough spot along with Cheese. He will try for his first win of the season next week against Brett, while Swans will look to make it back-to-back victories when he takes on Armenti in Week 4. Here are the Team Daddy standings after Week 3. The current playoff field is comprised of all the 2-1 teams ranked by points scored. In order, we have Swans, George, Zach, PJ, Armenti, Jed, Josh, and Big John. Just outside, we have the 1 and 2 teams, myself and Brett, followed by our winless teams in Kyle and Cheese. But with a lot of football left to play this season, anything can happen. Another friendly reminder to set your lineups and get your captain picks to either Brett and or Swans by 8 p.m. Eastern on Thursday night. Thank you as always for watching. This has been your Team Daddy Weekly Recap. I am your host, Shapiro the Hero, and I will see you next time. L'chaim, motherfuckers!